So we are saying when you're connecting your React application to the backend server, you need to use this library called the axios. And axios is a library that you use to make HTTP requests to your client, to your server. And this library is built on top of this particular API called XML HTTP request. This is the API, or this is what you will use to send a request to your client, I mean to your server, if you are using plain JavaScript. If you go to the JavaScript tutorial right on W3 Schools, so when you go to W3 Schools here and you go to JavaScript tutorial, you will see that we have this API called this right down here, iterations, synchronous, web APIs. So we have this library here called XML HTTP request. So this is what is used in JavaScript to send a request to the server. But now in case you're using React library, then the library that you will be using is the Axios. So Axios is built on top of this API, and therefore this is what we are going to use to make a request to our client, to our server, so that we are able to interact with the server APIs that we have built. So this particular library, it is very simple to use, and then it has a way of automatically transforming data into a JSON format, and then it has a better way of handling errors, as we are going to see. So let's take a step-by-step guide on how we are able to set up this framework and how we are able to send a simple request to the server. So now this is our server with the API. So if you look at this server code, we have these 4 APIs. We have the one for adding a post, we have the other one for getting posts, we have this one for updating the post, then we have this one for deleting the post. And now, before we even send any request to our server, we need to make sure that our server is running, it is up and running. So let's start our server by typing the command npm run dev. And now the server runs successfully and it connects to the database. Now you can see we can confirm it is running on port 8080. Now if it is running, let's go back to our React application so that we are able now to write the code that will integrate to the backend. All right. So what I've done, I've created this page called the post page. Let me run the React application so that we see what we are building in this particular lesson. So I will navigate to the project folder, cd block app. Then in this particular block app, I will type npm start. And now when the React application runs, it is starting the development server. Let's wait for it to load. Now after loading successfully, we can be able to see our React application here. So on our navigation bar, we only have these three navigation links. I can click on contact us, click on about us. Then when I click on post, you can be able to see that we have a list of posts here. All right. So we have here blog post, and then we have this symbol form, which has the title and then the content here. So we have this button where you can click and add a new post. Then we have all the posts which are on our database have been fetched and they are being displayed here. So you can edit that post or you can delete that particular post. So if you look at this content, this is exactly the content that we have on our database here. All right. So now the question is how to be able to build such kind of a web application that is able to connect to a database, I mean to the server, so that now the server can connect to database and fetching all that data that you need and displaying it here, so that when you delete from here, it also deletes on the database. So that is what we call integrating the front end and the back end. So these two are now integrated together. They now form a full application, a full stack application. Now, because I've already created this web page, I want to create a new one, a fresh one, just the same like this, so that we can be able to see this code line by line and be able to break it down. All right. So what I will do, I will go to the front end and let's create another page similar to this one, so that now we can demonstrate the concepts one by one. And therefore I will go within the src folder, right click and create a new file. Let me call it blog post page .js. So this is a file. Within this file, I'm going to create a function component that will display when we click on some link. So I'm going to create a symbol component. Let me copy this one here. Then of course I'm going to delete the HTML which is in it, so that we can have a different layout. Then within this return statement, I'm going to return some HTML, and here I'm just going to return one header for now, saying blog post, or just saying welcome to our blogs. And then I want to export it as a blog page. So if it's a blog page, then I also need to name this function to blog page instead of gallery. Now we have this component, And what I want to do is that I want to go to the navigation bar and add another link here called blog post, so that when I click on it I am able to go to that page. So how do we do that? We go to the navigation bar and we add another navigation link, and here we say link slash blogs, and if it is slash blogs, so let us have the text blogs and save that. So now we should be able to see that page here. So when I click on that now, I don't see anything here because I've not have not created the route for it in the index in the app.js. So I will come in the app.js and make sure that I import that particular component. Import. So what are we importing? We are importing a blog post, blog page from this file. Then after importing, now we define the route for it here. So I'm going to add another route. Then within this route I'm going to configure the path. I called it slash blocks, and when it is slash blocks, display this component called blocks blog page. Alright, then I'm going to end it there. So let's save. So on saving, it restarts automatically. Now when I click on blocks, let me see if it has restarted. Blog page. Okay. So here it should be we should use this syntax. Alright, so let me save again. Yeah, so now when I click on blocks, I'm able to see this one particular header saying welcome to our blocks. Now within this I want to just make some modifications, so it should be 2. Now below this header I want now to put I want to be able to put this to have a page that looks like this, so that we can have these blocks displayed in this format of card. Alright, then now we integrate. So for us to be able to integrate, we say that we need this library called axios. Okay, so the first thing would be is to set up your React application, which we already have it. Then you make sure you install the library called axios. So you just type the command npm install axios, and when it runs successfully, you should be able to see your library within the package.json. So now when you come within package.json, you should see this axios library installed right here. After installing the axios library, then now you can import it and use it to make the HTTP request, to send the request to the server. Alright, so now let's add the code that will send the request to the server. Let me close this, and also this one, and also this. So the first thing would be to import the axios library in your component. So just here I'm going to import that library. Then the next thing we are going to import is the use state and the use effect hooks. If you remember, when we were looking at the hooks, we said that use state is the hook that is used to track the state of the application, or to use to track the data within the application. Then use effect is the hook that we will use to perform some side effects, and one of the side effects could be while the application is loading, you want to at the same time send a request to the server. So that's an example of a side effect. So we also need to make sure we import these two React hooks right below here. So in line 1 and line 2, what we are doing basically, we are importing the libraries axios, and we are also importing these two hooks that we are going to use. After importing these two hooks, the next thing within that function, we need now to define. The first thing we are going to do is to fetch the posts. Alright, so we need to define a constant variable. You can call it posts, you can call it list of posts, you can call it whatever name you want to call. So this is just a variable name, and then you also define the method that will be able to update that variable content, and then you initialize it using the use state. Then also you have to define another variable called form, or whatever name you are going to give it. You can call it form data, and also use it a use state. And then lastly, we are going to define another variable called editing post, and we declare it using the use state. So I'm going to define three variables using the use state hook within the within the component. So let me align them together here. Now we have a variable called posts, which will store all the posts that we have fetched from the backend. Then we have this variable called form data. Let me call it form data instead of just form. And then we have set form data. So the form data it contains an object which has title and content. Then here we have another constant variable called edit post, and it is associated method called set edit post, and here we are also assigning it to a null value. So now we have declared these three use state variables. The next thing is, now let us write a function that will fetch all the posts from the database or from the server. So to do that, we use this use effect, and then within the use effect we use the axios library, and the axios library comes with a lot of methods. So when you press enter here, I mean the dot, you should be able to see that it has a lot of methods inbuilt within it. So we have a method called post, we have patch, we have put, we have get, and so many others. So now, because we want to fetch some content from the database or from the server, we use the HTTP method get, and then within this we provide the URL or the API. So this one is the API, and this API should be the same as the one that is on the backend. So when you look at our backend is running on port 8080. Okay, so let me just go back to it here. Yeah, so it is running on port 8080 because we've configured that port right here. And then when you go to the API, we have the API called let me start with index /API /v1, and then inside the API route file we have an API called get posts. So we also, when we are calling this API from the front end, we also make sure that this match. So we have /API /v1 /get posts, and it is a get method. So then we say, then when the response is fetched successfully, then what do? You log that response data here. Let's see that response data, and then after logging the response data on the console, you set the posts to this value that you have fetched from the backend. So if you go back, you see this set post. This is a method that updates this variable by filling it now with the values that we have fetched from the backend. So I want to get this particular method here, and then place it right down here. So this is how we integrate with the backend. By using the axios, we use the method, we provide the URL, and now we should be able to see that content. So let me save this application. Then now I'm going to go to the browser, and then when I go to the blocks and then I click shift, let's view the console, control shift I. You should see that there's a lot of logs that is here. So when you click on these logs, you can see that we have been able to fetch all the data from the database. So you can see here we have an array of two elements. The first element is this one, and then the second element is this one here. Now that we have this data, let's display it in the browser instead of just logging it in the console. All right, so let me close the console now. Now let's display it right here. And how are we going to display it? We are going to display it in this form so that it appears in this design. And this design, we call it a card. So we have a card, and within that card we are displaying the poster name, then the content, then below it we have the two buttons. So how are we able to make this? We are making this using the Bootstrap, or you can even use CSS if you want to use. But what I've used here, I've used the Bootstrap to just make this design very fast and very simple. All right, so I'm going to go back to the code just to confirm we are still together. So I'm going back to the code, and within the HTML below this header, let me now get the code snippet that will display that particular design. So I'm going to get this code snippet, then we shall be able to explain how it flows. Then go to our blog post page, and below this header, let me get this code right down here. So now this is a very long code, but shouldn't look scary. So if you look at the first, these are basically HTML that we are writing here, and then we are just using the Bootstrap. You can see here we have the Bootstrap class names. So this is our first header that you know. Inside here we have the div, and this div is just a container. So we are using a Bootstrap class name called container, which has a margin of 4. This one empty means margin top. So the margin top will be 4 pixels. Then below it we have a header with a class name margin bottom 3, and this header, it has this blog post. All right, and then below it we have the form input field. So we have the first input field, we use the input, then the type is a text field, and the placeholder is title, and then the value is going to be form data. So it is going to be the form data dot title, and then on change set form data equals to form data. So here we are using the spread operator. Title is equal to the value. Then also we have this other input field, which is a text area, and then this text area, it has a placeholder with the text content, and the value is form data dot content, and on change set the form data, call this method, and then use the spread operator to update the values. All right. Then below here we have this editing post, which is the variable that we had declared up here, editing post, and now we have initialized it to a null value. So what we are saying is that we are using operator here, which is just like if statement. So we are saying that if this is null, then display the button here with update post text, else display the button with the text add post. So we have two buttons here. We have the first button, which is this one, then we have the second button, which is this. All right. So depending on the value which is stored currently in the editing post, if it is a null, then we will display this button. If it has some content, then we will display this button. So one of these buttons will be displayed based on what is stored currently in this value called editing post. All right. Then below here now we have the card. We are using the map method of the array. You remember we talked about how to iterate through the arrays using the map method. So when we fetch the post from the backend, we are going to get a list or an array of map or of posts, I mean. That's why when you look at your console here, Shift I, you will see that we have an array of 2 elements. So we are getting a list of all those posts that are saved on the database, and for now there are only 2 posts. So that list, we should be able to loop or to iterate through that list and display each of the element in that list. So we are looping through it here and displaying this one here and also displaying this one. If there is another one, we will continue to display them as we scroll. All right. So to iterate through that list, we are using posts.map. Then for each post, display the card. So this one will display a symbol card, which is like this one, and this card will have, of course, so you can say we are using the bootstrap class names called card shadow. Then we have card body, the card title, the card text, then we have the card footer. So the card footer has 2 buttons, which is the edit button. So this is the edit button from here to here, and then the other button is the delete button right from here to here, which you are able to see them here. So this is the card title, then this is the card body, I mean the card text, yes, the card body here. Then below here we have the card footer, and this footer contains 2 elements, this button and this button right here. And we are using bootstrap. Otherwise, that's why you can see it is very simple to create very fast. Otherwise, you will have to write a lot of CSS for you to be able to achieve this design here. All right. Now, after that, let me save this change. And also here, I'm going to get this method here. So we have this method for adding the post. Let me get it right here. And then we go to the blog post. Sorry about that. So below this, so we have the first method, which is fetching the posts. Then we have the second method here, which does what? It adds a new post. So how does it add? We use axios again dot post. Now that we are adding content, we use the HTTP method post. Then we provide the URL or the API. Then we provide the data that we want to add. So the data here should be form data, which is this one right up here, form data. And the form data is consists of basically the title of the post and the content of the post. Then let's add another method to be able to update the content. So this one should be able to update the post. When you click on only one particular post, you are able to update that post. So again, this one is going to be form data. Then so when we are updating, we use put, and then we provide the URL right here, and then we provide the body as form data. So let me delete this. It's basically update a post. Then the next method that I want as the last one, which will be delete a post, which is this one right here. So when we are deleting a post, we also need to make sure that we use the HTTP method axios.delete, and then we provide the URL, and then let's remove this one. We will talk about it later, about the path parameters. So here we use the form data. All right. So now when we go to our browser, there you can see there is an error here. So we have form data is not defined. Let's look where that error is happening. The error is happening on line 23.5 and then on line 37. So when we go to line 23 and line 37, so line 37 is here, should be form data, and then on line 27 also here should be, so let me save now. 23, yeah, 23 form data. And now when I click on blog posts, you're able to see now this posts displayed right here. So when I click on edit, let me say I want to edit this post, it takes this data automatically and fills it up here, so that now I can edit, maybe type a new poster. Let me say the person who posted now is John, and maybe even edit the content and say welcome to this class as well. All right. Then now after that, you can see that now because these values are now having some content, then now you can update. So when you click on update post, we are getting some error, and I think we have a problem with update post. Yeah, so the reason is that we have not been able to provide the ID. We will fix that. So when you click on update, you should be able to successfully update that content, so that you have a new set of data that is displayed right here. You click on delete, it should also delete that particular value. You click on add post. So when you want to add post, you can type a new post here. Let me say Samuel is this the one posting, and is posting maybe I need to learn full stack. Then click on add post, and also you should be able to send a request to add a new post. Alright, so I will pause here and give room for you to ask questions before we can proceed to fixing these other methods. So we have been able to first of all make a request here to fetch all posts on the database. So that's how you should be writing it. So sorry about that. So what might change in your case, maybe you might be using a different server with a different URL. The URL might change here, but the logic of writing that get will always remain the same. So unless you have a question to ask, then you can ask before we can proceed to looking on add post, edit post, and delete post. In case you have a question to ask.